Jai Govinda, Jai Gopal, Kesava Madhava Dinadaya. Jai Govinda, Jai Gopal, Kesava Madhava. Jai Govinda, Jai Gopal, Kesava Madhava Dinadaya. Jai Govinda, Jai Gopal, Kesava Madhava. Hey, Dinadaya, Prabhu, Dinadaya, Dinadaya, Prabhu, Dinadaya, Dinadaya, Prabhu, Dinadaya, Dinadaya, Prabhu. Hey, Dinadaya, Prabhu, Dinadaya, Dinadaya, Prabhu, Dinadaya, Dinadaya, Prabhu, Dinadaya, Prabhu. Hey, Achyuta Keshava, Shridhara Madhava, Govinda Gopala Hari. Achyuta Keshava, Shridhara Madhava, Govinda Gopala Hari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Radhe Radhe Radhe, Shri Krishna Radhe Radhe, Radhe Radhe Radhe, Krishna Radhe Radhe, Radhe Radhe Radhe, Shri Krishna Radhe Radhe, Radhe Radhe Radhe, Krishna Radhe Radhe, Radhe 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 Ganesham, Radhe Radhe, Radhe 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 Ganesham, Radhe 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 Ganesham, Radhe Radhe, Radhe 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 Ganesham, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Radhe, Hey Radhe Radhe, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Radhe. Jai Gaur, Hari Hari Bol. Jai. We're reading from the Jaiva Dharma, a book by Bhakti Thakur. And the scenario is that there's a ashram of Babaji's who live in the place of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's birthplace. And one person who became interested, his name was Lahiri Mahashaya, started to come there and inquire from the head Babaji there, the Guru Maharaj. So Lahiri Mahashaya begins with, "Now I've heard from you about Sambandha Gyan. Please now teach me about the Abhideya Tattva." So Sambandha Gyan means the nature of relationship of things. And if we analyze, there's only really three things. There's God, there's this material world, and there's the living being. Everything that exists, of course, comes from God, and therefore we are all the Shaktis of the Supreme. They interrelate that everything is meant for the service of the Supreme. So Sambandha means, what is the relationship between the living being, the world, the living being and God, God with the world, God with the living being, and so forth. Understanding that we are all part and parcel of the Lord, and that our eternal nature is to serve the Lord in loving devotion. Lahiri says, now, please tell me how to perform the worship of the Lord, and that is called the Abhideya. Abhideya is the means, and the goal, of course, Sambandha Abhideya is called Prayojana. Prayojana means what is the goal of everything we're doing. Ultimately, we should be working for the goal of developing or increasing the nature of our love for the Supreme. So Babaji says here, worship of the Lord is called Bhakti. Bhakti has 3 stages: sadhana, bhav, and prem. The first stage is sadhana. By doing sadhana, bhav arises. When bhav is complete, it is called prem. So sadhana is the practice of devotion. When one is engaged in the devotional practice, the heart begins to become stirred, and awakenings of loving relationship with the Lord and everything connected with the Lord also. The Sambandha, we realize that everything has its connection with the Lord, and the devotee sees everything in relationship with the Lord. Even his work becomes devotion to the Lord. Everything he does is an aspect of his expression of loving devotion towards the Lord. That's what we want, ultimately, to see everything connected with the Lord. So, when that bhav arises, or the feelings of loving devotion begins to stir within the heart, it matures when pure love is manifest, and that is called prem. So Lahiri Mahashaya, he asks the Babaji, how many types of sadhana are there? Please give me an order to which type I should perform. So he's inquiring that how many types of sadhana are there, and what should I do? He is asking his Guru Maharaj, what is best for me to do to stir that bhav within my heart? Babaji says, according to Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, sadhana can be divided into 9 types. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam. Shravanam means hearing. One should hear about the Lord or hear the chanting of Krishna's names and like that. Hearing also can be hearing of the Shastra or discussions about the Lord and like that. Chanting, Kirtanam, is the third. Smaranam is taking the hearing and chanting deeper into our heart with remembrance. Smaranam, contemplation. Then there is physical engagement of services called Padasevanam. There is Archanam, which is the worship of the Lord. Vandanam, there is offering of prayers. Those may all be considered external. And then as that external sadhana is executed through our hearing and our chanting, our remembrance, our service, our worship, our prayers, we develop a feeling inside, and it begins with dasyam, the idea that we are the servants of the Lord. And when that becomes even more intensified, it increases to the feeling of sakyam, friendship. And then finally, atmanivedanam means giving of oneself completely to the Lord. It is sometimes described also that in Vrindavan, you could divide the idea of parental affection and like that into the dasyam stage. The cowherd boys of the Dham, of Vrindavan, have a sakyam, a friendship. So it can also mean a cultivation of a particular mood, following in the mood of Mother Jashoda, Nanda Maharaj, understanding the mood of parental affection towards the Lord. Sakyam means cultivating the mood or understanding the mood of the young cowherd boys and their relationship with the Lord in friendship when they go out to the forest and they're engaged in sporting and playing. And then the Atmanivedanam can also then refer to the gopis who give their whole existence for the pleasure of the Lord. So he goes on to say, all of these are mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Subdividing these 9 types, Rupa Goswami has calculated 64. There's a particular point to mention here, though. Sadhana Bhakti has 2 types, Vaidhi and Raganuga. Among them, Vaidhi Bhakti has these 9 types. They're included in the system of what is called Vaidhi Bhakti. Vaidhi comes from the Sanskrit word vidhi. Vidhi means constructed according to rules and regulations. That is, someone who is living in the ashram, he regulates himself so he gets up every day at a certain time in the morning. He engages in certain practices of chanting so many rounds and serving the Vaishnavas or serving his Guru Maharaj and like that. So all of that is under the regulations called Vidhi or Vaidhi Bhakti. But there is another type of bhakti also, which is called Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti, where one serves Krishna in the mind following the residence of Braj. According to one's qualification, one performs his sadhana. This is a deeper stage in the sense that one executes his Vaidhi, or the principles of regularly executing his devotion to the Lord through the practices of hearing and chanting and so forth. But it's more of a heart cultivation too, understanding the nature of the exchange of that is found within that spiritual world, that Vrindavan, that eternal spiritual Vrindavan, and how everyone there relates to Krishna in according to their moods of devotion, and hearing about that. So Lahiri asks, how does one judge the qualification for sadhana bhakti? Babaji says, the Guru teaches the faithful person who is dependent on rules to perform Vaidhi sadhana bhakti. He then may instruct the person qualified for Raganuga to perform Raganuga sadhana. So Lahiri asks then, how does one understand one's qualification? And Babaji says, the person who has not realized Rag in his Atma and desires to perform worship according to rules of scripture is qualified for Vaidhi Bhakti. Generally, everyone begins on the level of Vaidhi Bhakti unless he's very advanced and is carrying something over from his past life and is already an elevated sadhu. But usually one begins on the level of Vaidhi Bhakti. He comes in contact with devotees, some faith is stirred in his heart, he accepts a spiritual master, executes devotional practices under the guidance of the spiritual master, and like that. Srila Prabhupada, of course, and his own Guru Maharaj emphasized this for the people in general, that give everyone an access to devotion to Krishna and let them follow the process of Vaidhi sadhana. When one becomes more advanced, then something else may be available for them. But for the beginning, especially when we're engaged in opening up our doors to everyone, then we speak about Krishna consciousness on one particular level, that everyone should engage in these practices of hearing and chanting, remembering the Lord, engaging in service, especially to the advanced Vaishnavas, the elders, and the Guru, like that. So Lahiri says, oh, Prabhu, please determine my qualification. Then I will be able to understand the truth about qualification. I do not understand the differences between Vaidhi and Raganuga. Babaji says, if you examine your heart, you can understand your qualification. Are you thinking that if one does not follow the scriptures, or worship cannot take place? Lahiri says, I think there is a special advantage if one performs sadhana according to the scriptures, but nowadays many people think that the ocean of Ras can be achieved simply by the strength of bhajan. So, of course, we're not raised in an environment, as is in India, where one understands the importance of the Shastra, the scriptures, and the guiding light of the scriptures. So here he's asking, though, do you feel more connection with the scriptural references of devotion, or are you feeling something else within your heart? So he says, I understand the special performance of worshiping the Lord according to scriptures. I understand also there's many people who think they can transcend the scriptures and just obtain ras by the strength of their bhajan. But practically speaking, it is not really seen that one can kind of step beyond. Bhakti, Rupa Goswami says, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. It's an ocean of devotion. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. The ocean, Sindhu, the Bhakti Ras is great expanse. So it's not easy to immediately jump to the other side. But in other words, immediately gain the access to the mood of the gopis of Braj or the cowherd boys of Braj. But it can be cultivated, and so generally it's done in stages. Hearing this, Lahiri, with tears in his eyes, touched Babaji's feet and said, "Oh, please give mercy so that I can attain the proper qualifications. I do not want to do anything for which I am not yet qualified." Babaji embraced him and made him sit down. Lahiri said, "Please clearly tell me now how to perform worship." Babaji says, "Chant the name of Krishna." The worship of taking shelter of the name is the strongest of all bhajans. And this is the emphasis given by all our acharyas, that let us focus, especially in the beginning, on the Nam, Krishna Nam. Absorb yourself in hearing Krishna Nam, doing your japa deeply, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, attending kirtans, and not just superficially in one ear and out the other, like they said, but bringing it into the heart, bringing the Nam deep into the heart. Let it resonate in the heart, and let it open. The heart is sometimes compared to like a lotus, that when it's properly nurtured, it will open. So the lotus of the heart can open through the proper practice. But one should take that Nam deep and not just let it go superficially through one ear and one. Because one can superficially chant, dance, and go wild in some kirtan, but it's really not touching the heart. Let it touch the heart. So individual practice as well as group practice is important. The philosophy is that the name and the person indicated by their name are non-different. So this is the first thing that we understand, that Krishna can manifest from his name. All aspects of Krishna can manifest through the chanting of his name, because the name and the person Krishna are non-different. That is the nature of the absolute reality. That there is no duality. There is only the oneness. God and his name are one. They're non-different. And by chanting his name, he begins to manifest within our heart. He can appear within our heart. We can realize his pastimes within our heart. But this will take time. Therefore, Mahaprabhu says, Chaito Darpanam Marjanam. That is, in the beginning, chant the mantra with the idea that you're cleansing the heart. Like a dirty mirror, he says, cleanse the heart so that it can reflect properly. If you have a mirror that's dirty, then it's hard to see through, but you have to clean it. Similarly, Mahaprabhu says the first process is chanting the Nam, chanting the name of Krishna, with the intention of cleaning the heart. Chaito Darpanam Marjanam. If you chant without offense, then very quickly you will attain all perfection. With strong faith, chant the name. Chant continually. This will then lead to the performance of all 9 processes of bhakti. When you utter the name, then naturally Shravanam and Kirtan both take place. You're hearing and you're chanting. Remembering the Lord's pastimes. This is very easy for one who's living in the Dham, of course. We're walking around chanting Krishna's name, and we see this place, we remember or we recall what Krishna did here. That's the special advantage of living in the Dham. But one can also then read different aspects of Krishna's life and the loving moods, and then deeply chant again. So one may read something about how Krishna goes out in the morning with the cowherd boys and like that, and then begin to chant. So this is called Lila Smaranam, remembering the Lila of the Lord and chanting his name to enter into the Lila itself. In other words, to experience that Lila. So there are various books written by our acharyas which give Lilas, Smaranam, remembrances of the Lord's Lilas. But then besides that, one should also engage in service, of course. That is important. Service puts us in a humble mood. Without service, we may be proud, and we may think, I'm very advanced devotee, I'm hearing, I'm chanting, I'm remembering the Lord. But actually, the true test of your devotion is in your experience of the elevation of the Vaishnavas who are in the elderly category, I would say senior category. They've been chanting for a long time. They've been engaging in devotional service. They've given their life to devotion. We should understand that they are very elevated persons. The spiritual master, we're not to think of him as ordinary human being, because his devotion has been the focus of his life. So we see this, when we meet devotees. We've been associating with some of our God brothers here in Alacho, which is very nice. God brothers and God sisters sitting and reading together and chanting with them. And we're also appreciating how much seva they've all done, how much they all have become dear to Srila Prabhupada, our spiritual master, because they've dedicated their lives. Now we're all in our retirement stage. That is almost what we call bhajananandi stage. That our life is simply bhajan. We're not doing so much as we did previously, but our life is dedicated to hearing and chanting and associating with other Vaishnavas like that. When you utter the name, Shravan and Kirtan takes place, remembrance of the Lord, service to the lotus feet, as well as the performance of archana and vandana, prayers and worship on your altar, dasyam, cultivation of service and friendship and giving of oneself. My heart is excited, says Lahiri. Do not delay. Babaji says, okay, so now without offense, you should continually chant, constantly chant. And this is Nam Diksha. He's handing him the beads. Saying this, Babaji gave to Lahiri a set of Tulsi beads. And he said, chant, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, at this point, the Babaji sees that Lahiri is very sincere, and so he gives him Tulsi beads to chant on regularly, and says, this is your sadhana now, chant on these beads regularly. Saying this, Babaji gave Lahiri a set of Tulsi beads. Lahiri, chanting the name on these beads, began to cry. He said, oh Prabhu, I cannot describe the bliss that I've experienced today. Out of bliss, he became unconscious, falling at the Babaji's feet. Everyone I know can say they can recollect the time that they were initiated and the joy that one experienced within the heart when one received one's Diksha beads and one received the name that you carry as a Vaishnava or Vaishnavi, like that. So Babaji held him carefully, and for a long time Lahiri said, oh, I have become successful. I have never experienced such happiness. Babaji said, sir, because you are fortunate, you have chanted the name with faith. So you have also made me fortunate. The spiritual master feels blessed also to have sincere disciples. So he says here, oh, you have made me fortunate by seeing your sincerity. From that day on, Lahiri, accepting the beads, without fear began chanting in his cottage. Some days passed in this manner. Lahiri then began to wear the tilak markings. He would only eat the foods that were offered to the Lord. Every day he would chant a specific number of names on his beads. Whenever he saw a pure Vaishnava, he would offer them dandavat pranam. After offering respects to his guru, Paramahansa Babaji, every morning, he would do his various activities. He always served his guru. He had no taste for material topics or classical singing anymore. Lahiri was no longer the same person. He had become a Vaishnav. Now one day, Lahiri, offering respects on the ground to Vaishnava Das Babaji, asked, "What is the Prayojana Tattva?" Babaji said, "Krishna Prem. That is the ultimate goal, the Prayojana Tattva of the Jiva. Performing sadhana, the heart awakens, bhav arises. When bhav becomes complete, and it is called Prem. And this is the Jiva's Nitya Dharma." Bhaktivinoda Thakur calls his book Jaiva Dharma, or the true nature of the soul. So it can also be called Nitya Dharma, the eternal function of the Jiva, Jiva Nitya Dharma. His eternal treasure and the final goal is Prem. Without Prem, there is difficulty, material bondage and contact with material enjoyment. There is nothing better than Prem. Krishna is only controlled by Prem. Prem is a spiritual truth. When bliss becomes concentrated, that is called Prem. Lahiri began weeping. "Oh, how will I become qualified for attaining this Prem?" Babaji embraced him and said, "In time, you will turn your sadhana bhakti to bhav bhakti, and then gradually it will become more intensified and manifest to Prem. Krishna will definitely give you his mercy. If you approach everything correctly, then Krishna's mercy is always there." Hearing this, Lahiri spoke with a choked voice in bliss, "There is nothing except Guru. What have I done till now? Giving me unlimited mercy, O Guru, you have delivered me from the well of material life." Thus ends Chapter 4. Chapter 5 is a further discussion of Vaidhi Bhakti and how it differs from the what is called Naimatika Dharma, or the temporary duties of the material world. It is a different type of activity. Vaidhi Bhakti, or the sadhana of Bhakti, is quite different than all the what we may call dharmas or duties of the material world. But we'll hear more about that next time. So we'll begin with Chapter 5. And here it says, we've only read 9% of the book. We got a lot to cover. Jai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Bol, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Oh Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare